Hi everybody and welcome to our section on working with SQL source control. In this class we're going to look at how you can make changes to your development database and then commit those changes into your source control repository. And I don't just mean schema changes, we're also going to look at how we can make data changes to that static data that we added to our source control repository in previous videos. So let's jump on into the VM and take a look at the changes that we've got to commit. So here I'm going to switch into SQL Server Management Studio. Here's our development database that we added to our TFS repository previously. We've got all of our stored procedures, our tables, so on and so forth. The great news is that when you work with SQL source control, it doesn't matter how you make changes to your database objects. So regardless if I prefer to execute T-SQL scripts or actually use the designers, I can still capture those changes and add them to the source control repository. So let's imagine we want to make a change to our contacts table. Our contacts table here you can see has various different columns that have things like phone numbers, addresses, contact names. Let's imagine we want to add a new method of contacting a user of our system, maybe by tweets. So I'm going to add Twitter as a column, pick a relevant data type, let's say mvarchar50, and then save that change in the designer. Now, I happen to know that I have a stored procedure that references this contacts table, and so we're probably going to want to update that at the same time so that this can pull in that new Twitter column. So I'm going to come into our PRC get contact stored procedure, and this time I'm going to expand that wildcard. So we're going to issue an alter procedure statement to change the definition of our PRC get contact stored procedure. So let's execute this. So we've made a couple of changes here, one using the designer and then one using a SQL script. If we want to capture both of these changes in our source control repository, all we have to do is right-click on our database and choose Commit Changes to Source Control. And this will bring our focus straight back to that SQL Source Control tab within our IDE, within SQL Server Management Studio. We didn't have to leave and go anywhere else. We're still where we're doing our day-to-day work. And here we can see it's got those two changes listed. So first of all, we have an edit to our contacts table. And if we look at the lower part of the screen here, we can see we have this new Twitter column that's been added. On the left, we have the version that's currently present in our development database. And on the right, we have the version that's currently present in source control. Moving down, we also have this amendment to our PRC get contact stored procedure. So again, on the left in our development database, you can see this expanded list of all of the columns, including that new Twitter column. And on the right, you can see we have that old select star from contacts that was present to begin with. So both of our schema changes are present. Another way that we could check to see what's changed between our development database and our source control repository is in the Object Explorer. Here, if we look at the database icon for this Redgate University Dev database, you can see this little blue indicator. And that's telling us that there are changes present in the database that have yet to be committed to source control. And if I scroll down, you'll see that this is all the way down the tree. So here there's another icon on the tables folder and another icon on our contacts table. Below this, if we look in stored procedures, you can see that there's one on programmability, one on stored procedures, and then one on our PRC get contact stored procedure. So it's really easy for us to see what's changed and what is waiting to be committed to the repository. When it comes to committing these in, I simply choose what I want and click commit. But wait, we also said we were going to make a change to our static data. So to do this, all I have to do is find our static data table. Previously, we added our country codes as a static data table and make a change to the value within this table. So let's imagine that United Arab Emirates, instead of having the country code AE, was changing its country code to XX. If I make that change, I can come back to our database, Redgate University Dev, and click Commit Changes to Source Control. And now in this refreshed commit list, not only will we see those previous two changes, but we'll also have this data change as well, where we can see we've amended that country code from AE in the source control repository to XX in our local development database. I can use these checkboxes to choose what I want to commit to the repository, so I can include or exclude the things that I want. In this case, I'm going to include everything. And then in the commit box, I can just type my comment. So here I'm going to type added Twitter column and updated country codes. And once I've done this, I can simply click commit. And that's it. The tool will now take all of those changes to the database objects and pass them over to our source control repository. In this case, we're using TFS, but it could, again, be any source control system that you'd like to use. So let's take a look in that repository. If I switch back over into the Redgate University project and take a look at the content of the code repository, we'll now see that in our database folder, we have our tables, and in there we have our contacts table, which was updated just now, and the commit comment was added Twitter and updated country code. If I take a look at that definition, you'll see this includes that brand new Twitter column. So all of our changes have been added. I'll just quickly check our data. And if we look at the country codes data, we should also see in here that the United Arab Emirates has now got the country code XX. So it's really easy, just a couple of clicks. That's all you need to add onto your process. Once you've made your changes, right click, commit changes, select what you want to add to the repository and add your commit comment. So in later videos, we'll be looking at how we can actually get changes out of the source control repository and share those changes across our team. But thanks very much for joining me for how to get those changes into the repository in the first place.